I don't even know what I want to say. I don't even know what I'm doing up here. I completely forgot what I'm doing. I always forget what I'm doing, man. It's bizarre. After Jay took over running the whole stream, it's weird just getting back into this and learning how to do the intro music and set up the shows. It's an adventure, man. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Yeah. What are you up to over there, Shane? What are you typing down? You typing in a memoir? You writing in your diary? What's going on?
Memoir, not a memoir. A memoir memoir sounds dirty. I mean, it just sounds dirty, first of all.
Tomatoes, same thing.
It's like, oh, I stuck it in her memoir. Like, whoa. Gentleman doesn't kiss and tell, you know. What you did with her memoir is between the two of you.
Where does it memoir? I feel like I've actually heard people say that before, though. A memoir.
I'm gonna go with no, and also I probably shouldn't be the one that you're checking English language on, because that's not I'm not good at the whole English language.
We actually got some hate on the way that we were pronouncing certain players, so that was pretty funny. I enjoyed the feedback from that a couple weeks ago. That was fun.
Who did we? What was it? Will Levis? Will Levis?
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, that was a comment in there, but they knew you were doing it intentionally. So, I mean, it is what it is, right?
What the fuck? I do it intentionally. I don't give a fuck. Look, if you don't like it, turn off the fucking show. It's that simple.
Yeah,
there's a couple things. Yeah, I curse a lot, right? I'm going to curse a lot. I'm going to mispronounce names. I'm going to mispronounce words. I'm going to try to say words that I don't have any business saying. And I'm going to be really hyperbolic, and I'm also going to be sharper than like 98% of the fantasy community. So hate it or love it, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I'm just going to propose stuff that makes you shake your head and pretty much doubt all of human life.
Yeah.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
Oh, man, we already have 5 Meatwad in the chat going off. Looking forward to the stream. Glad to see Mistress Vicky let Shane come on tonight. I am too.
Hi, Mistress.
Oh, God. Is this actually a story?
No. She's just, we haven't talked. I asked her if I had to buy my own costume, and she said yes. And I was like, I don't know about this relationship. Like, I don't know. Just, I was supposed to be her sissy, but like, shouldn't she buy me clothing?
Yeah, I don't really know where to go with that one, but welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Yes, we are coming at you hot and heavy on a Wednesday night. We are here to discuss some fantasy implications from the 2023 offseason, which players you should be buying, which ones you should be dropping, which ones just to keep an eye on. We're going to go division by division tonight. We are covering the NFC East and the NFC West, so get excited as we break down this, as Shane would put it, 98% sharper analysis than anybody that you might know when it comes to fantasy football.
With 100% more curses, bitch.
Yeah, bitch. All right, so let's go ahead and let's kick this episode off. And since we're both NFC East fans, I figured, hey, I had a busy day. You had a busy day. Let's go ahead and go with the division that we're extremely familiar with, and let's go with the NFC East. And we're going to start out with your Philadelphia Eagles. That's right, Shane. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought about leaving them into the middle of the show, so that way, like when you start going on, yeah, exactly. When you're going into Twitter and stuff, like you'll be brought back in. But since you're already off to a rock and start writing your memoirs and whatnot, you're going to go ahead and start us out with the Philadelphia Eagles. And
probably going to play with my memoir later.
Oh my God! All right, so. Obviously, we have the studs, right? And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the studs. DeAndre Swift is probably what we're going to start out with. But, of course, we got to acknowledge Jalen Hurts, potential quarterback 1. A.J. Brown, potential wide receiver one on the season. We have Devonta Smith, who we're going to talk about, and Goddard. But out of this backfield, Shane, Swift, is he going to receive a primary role? Is he going to see the same amount of touches, that the snap share that Miles Sanders saw? Or do you think that they leave him for third downs until Rashad Penny inevitably gets hurt?
I think they're going to try to roll some type of committee out there where they roll both of them out there. Like, I think they're going to share the backfield. It's just one of them's going to get it hurt. That's what they do. I mean, that's what they're best at. Although Swift has been a little healthier than Rashad. Well, not a little. I mean, Christ, Mr. Glass is more healthy than Rashad fucking Penny. But I think it's going to be more Swift than Penny. I mean, but the thing is, they're both going to have their time. They're both really good on a per touch basis. And there's no real reason to use any one of them at 20 touches a game. I think the perfect world is where they're kind of interchangeable because they're both good receivers. Swift, probably better, but they're both good receivers. They're good space backs. So, I mean, I'd like to see what's going to happen on the option. Like, these guys might have some free running lanes. So if they get 15 to 20 touches, I think that's probably a little aggressive. I think they probably want to get them 10 to 12 touches each.
And you're saying that for Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift, correct?
Yeah. I'm not even paying attention to Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell, the stud of this backfield. Kenneth Gainwell, the player who dominated the tail end of last season and brought you guys to the playoffs. Come on now. Nothing. You're not giving me anything.
No.
Damn it. I thought I'd get some sort of conversation out of you and Kenny Gainwell. Me, I'm still investing somewhat in Kenneth Gainwell because we do know the injury history of, like you said, a lesser version of Mr. Glass and DeAndre Swift. I think that not rostering Kenneth Gainwell is somewhat asinine if you have an opportunity to. Like,
if you've got deep rosters, you definitely should be. Look, Kenny Gainwell should not be on the waiver in anything beyond like an FFPC league where you can only roster 20 players. But outside of that, like in the leagues we play in, there's absolutely no reason for him to be on the waivers. In a redraft, I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but redraft, there's no reason to have him on your roster. But in a dynasty, yeah, he should definitely be rostered everywhere.
Yeah, I still feel like he, to an extent, should be rostered in some of the redraft leagues and even the more shallow dynasty leagues, just because I feel like there could be an immediate work for him we're talking about week 3 or 4, right? Like, there's all that potential for this workload to come in just because of the two players ahead of him and the injury concerns. But I do get it. I do understand if you don't want to draft him and redraft and you want him to sit on waivers, but that could be potentially a league winner. So in dynasty leagues, I'm actually making moves to acquire Gainwell. I'm trying to move a third for him. I could even see myself, if I'm a competitive team or if I have Swift or Penny, trying to move a late second for it. So Gainwell is still somebody that, although I don't think that he's going to have a role unless somebody gets injured, we're still likely going to see one of these guys, if not both, end up with an injury, and he could be the starting running back as soon as week 4 or 5, at least a few weeks in the season.
Yeah, I mean, we're counting on both of them being injured at the same time for Kenny Gainwell to get much run, because I think he's more of a 7 to 8. 7 to 8, that's really specific. More of a 7 to 10 touch a game guy at most. 7 to 8, so somewhere in there.
I'm surprised you didn't go with 6 to 9. Out of all numbers, I expected you to go 69. But
yeah, but let's move. Jamie's right. Let's move on from Kenny Gainwell. I mean, look, the Eagles. We obviously know Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. I expect each one of these guys to be top. Well, except for Smith, I expect every one of these guys to be top 6 at their position at worst in scoring, and then Devonta Smith in the top 10, or maybe a little lower.
Yeah, I mean, well, we saw Waddle finish out at like wide receiver 7 or something along those lines last year. Is Devonta Smith somebody that you'd rather have over like a T. Higgins or a Waddle? The number 2 on a pass-heavy team.
No, I think
about those guys ahead.
Yeah, and I like Smith. I like Smith a lot. I think Waddle. his first 2 seasons have been more impressive to Smith than to me. And T. Higgins, I was kind of off the T. Higgins train because I was looking at his scoring last year, and I forgot to account for the fact that he had like 14 games where he played, but didn't play any snaps. Like in the games that he actually played snaps, he's like 18 points a game or something like that. 16 points a game, actually. Excuse me. Pretty big difference there. So I think I still take T. Higgins. But more importantly, like what you do is if you have one of these players and someone offers you the other one, we'll just try to get that player with a little extra on the side.
How much is a little extra? Are we talking about a 2nd-round pick, or do you need a first?
Seconds? I mean, it'd have to be a couple seconds because it's just, to me, 1 second's not enough. You look at the hit rates on seconds. Yes, it's a fungible asset. Hey, I haven't used that word in a minute, which is fine. I really want to, like, the way I want to do it is if I'm making this move, I don't want to say trick someone, but like I want to get over on them. You know what I mean? Like, here's Devonta Smith in my second, and you give me, well, that probably won't work. Well, here's Jalen Waddle in my second. You give me Devonta Smith in a first.
Yeah, I 100%. I'm down with that trade. I could definitely see that working, especially if you're somebody that's trying to acquire multiple first-round picks in the 2024 draft with the studs we have coming up. All right, let's hop over to the Giants at this point, because the Giants are in a really curious situation where they've got a bunch of wide receiver 2s on their team, maybe even wide receiver 3s. They don't really have that wide receiver 1, but in this type of offense, they're trying to run it somewhat similar to what we saw with Andy Reid, right? Where he's just using a bunch of guys that can run intermediate short routes. One big physical presence on the field, such as the Higgins to stretch the field, or I'm sorry, Isaiah Hodgins to stretch the field. And outside of that, like, you really don't know who's going to get the ball. So is there any New York Giants wide receiver that you're actually interested in having for 2023?
I'm still interested in Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, I know it was a really small sample size, really small, but, he popped a little bit. And he's the one guy that I think if any one of them can break out, it's going to be him. It's not going to be Sterling Shepard, right? We've been there. Not Darius Slayton, been there. Paris Campbell, get the fuck out of here.
Come on, Paris looked good last year.
No, yeah, you look great. So it's going to be Wan'Dale for me. I know there's a lot of people out on him. They feel like it's a Kadarius Toney redux,
yeah,
right?
It feels
because
like
it's
it, right?
like, like he popped a little bit, then he got injured, which, I see those similarities, but that's literally the only similarity between the two.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in Wan'Dale. I actually have a good amount of shares of Wan'Dale that I acquired in the offseason, particularly in the draft. When teams wanted to move up in the draft, I would ask them for a pick in the same round and throw in Wan'Dale, especially in the second round where, hey, you want to move up 3 spots? I want Wan'Dale Robinson. Give me him. And like you said, people are out on him right now. So I do think he's a cheap buy. And out of anybody on that roster, I would be buying Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'd be buying Colin Johnson coming back from an injury. So moving on, I will find one way or another to get Colin Johnson injected into these episodes. All right, so we have Darren Waller, who is coming over from the Raiders. He hasn't been relevant in years. People feel like he could be back, right? Because Brian Dable, and he made Dawson Knox relevant for a season. Well, Dawson Knox needed all the touchdowns in order to do so, and he was extremely inconsistent. Is Darren Waller the actual wide receiver 1 on this roster? Is he going to get 20 touchdowns like some people are predicting? Not really, but hypothetically. And is he somebody that you should actually make a move for?
I want to say I was a lot more excited about him when the move first happened, because it's easy to tell yourself a story. Well, he was the dude 3 years ago, because it's now 3 years ago? Because last season he wasn't very good. Season prior to that he wasn't very good. So
he was injured the season prior to that, I think, right?
Right, whatever. So, but it's been 3 seasons since he's really showed out for us.
And how many seasons was he good for before that?
2.
I don't even know if it was 2 full seasons before that. I think he was only good for 2 seasons.
Look, you can get him cheap, sure, but he's not someone I'm going out of my way to add. If I'm making a deal, a larger deal, he's one of those guys that I might just poke around and see if I can get added into the deal, because I know he's not going to blow it up if I throw that into the deal on someone.
It feels like that's how everybody's treating it, though. So don't you think you could throw like a late 2nd round pick or even a 3rd round pick to a team that's not competing?
I'll give a 3rd round for him. I'm not giving a 2nd rounder. 2nd round has too much value.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, late second, I could see it, but yeah, you're right. I mean, you could essentially move a late second for a second next year, and that could be an early in most cases, or in some cases, I should say. That's interesting. Honestly, Daniel Jones, he's the only other interesting fantasy option, and honestly, outside of Saquon, he's probably the most interesting fantasy option in terms of his rushing upside and what he can provide. They signed him to a new contract. He now has all these weapons, but really he has just a bunch of tertiary options. But I still believe in his rushing upside. So for me, Daniel Jones is a quarterback that I'm actually trying to acquire. Anytime that I'm moving off of a quarterback and the other team has Daniel Jones, I'm asking them to throw in Daniel Jones into the trade to kind of even it out the scales. For me, I don't know, Shane, about you, but anytime that I trade away a quarterback, I typically try to get a quarterback back. If not, multiple first-round picks. So is Daniel Jones a guy that's more than just a throw-in in trades, or is he somebody that you are actively trying to acquire as the primary target?
I'd love to say that I'm actively trying to acquire him, except that I haven't tried to acquire him in any league whatsoever. So clearly I'm not trying to acquire him. He's not a guy that I'm that interested in. Again, he was good last year, but he's a QB2. I mean, and he's a high-end QB2. I don't want to discount what he is. Like that's useful. But I can find those.
I mean, isn't a high-end QB2 the same thing as a low-end QB1 or even a QB8 pretty much at that point?
Well, no, not QB8, but it's close to a low-end QB1. But I haven't gone out of my way. I think last year was his zenith. I can't imagine he ever does that again. I don't see him rushing for 700 yards again, and he's definitely not going to pick up the slack in the passing game.
Why wouldn't he run for 700 yards again? You just think it's a freak exception? This is the offense that Brian Dable ran with Josh Allen.
I don't think he's that's not what we're going to see. I mean, how many quarterbacks have rushed for 700 yards? I mean, it's a small list. It's a small, I mean, it's not a big list. It's a small list, you know what I mean? And the ones that have done it more than once, it's even smaller. So I just, to just pencil that in, here's another 700 rushing yards. That's hard for me to do.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I still think that he can get there again just because of the system that Dable runs, but I can understand that. I do think that he picks up in the passing game. He's somebody that I want on my roster personally, but like I said, I'm not making him the primary focus. I'm more so trying to get him back if somebody's looking to upgrade their quarterback and acquire one of mine. All right, let's hop over to the Cowboys. The Cowboys are interesting, right? Because the Cowboys have a majorly improved defense. No Ezekiel Elliott. So it feels like the Cowboys now have consolidated efforts or consolidated fantasy options that they might not have had last year. No tight end with Dalton Schultz. They now have a rookie tight end. It's going to take them a couple years, most likely, to put any kind of major fantasy points on the board. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 5 last year, potentially moves up to the top 3 this year. But the other options are kind of a mystery. Brandon Cooks is a big one that I'm like, man, I want him on a championship team, but I don't want to pay for him.
When hasn't Brandon Cooks performed though? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. I want him on a contender. I want him, but what do I want to give up for him? Because if you're dealing with a guy that thinks he's in contention, but he's not really in contention, he just has this false sense of security that his team is actually good. He's not going to give him up for any more than a second. And since his team isn't good, they're not going to end up. It's not going to end up being a late second round pick. It'll be an early second round pick. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think a second obviously gets it done. I don't know if that's the move you want to make though. Maybe pivot off of a running back that's broken. Although I hate moving from running back to wide receiver unless you're absolutely desperate at wide receiver. Hey, what's going on, Husker? I'm just trying to think of running backs in that range, and I'm really not thinking of anyone that's coming to my mind right now. But who's Kenny Gainwell? No, who's a back end RB2 that you know what I mean?
I think the fantasy community considers Antonio Gibson one that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think he's higher than that. To be honest, I wouldn't give up Gibson for him. But they're probably about the same value, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
now again
Montgomery.
I'd hold David Montgomery. I'd probably hold Gibson too. As I'm going through this in my mind, it's going to have to be a really specific circumstance where I'm like, yeah, give me Brandon Cooks. My wide receiver room is going to just have to be fucking bereft of talent.
Ooh, Foreman. Johnson Foreman or Khalil Herbert or whichever Bears running back you like.
How about both of them?
Okay. Are you a Rashad? Rookie. Are you
I like rookies. Yes.
Roshan Johnson? Excuse me. Are you a
No,
Roshan Johnson guy?
I'll take Brandon Cooks over Roshan.
What about like a Kendra Miller-esque range running back?
I'd rather have Kendra Miller. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think that Brandon Cooks is a guy that can go out there and win you a championship, especially knowing the schedule for the Cowboys and how they play the Lions in Week 17. I mean, that's a guy that I want to roster, but I'm a little bit concerned, I guess, with the defense and it not being as high scoring as we've seen in the past. I mean, I know they're going to pass the ball more. I don't see that as a concern. But if something happens to Tony Pollard, if this wide receiver core falls apart,
I don't know that they're going to pass the ball more because they don't want to. Like Mike McCarthy was unhappy that Kellen Moore wanted to lead the league in yardage, like when it's more important to lead the league in
wins.
Something else. I don't know. Not yardage. Yardage isn't important apparently to Mike McCarthy, so he wants to run the ball more. Yeah, okay. I guess it's going to be Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. Malik Jackson, is that his name?
Malik Davis.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, so Clyde Meatwad says James Conner in the same range as Cooks, by the way. So just going back to our last conversation, would you rather have Cooks or Conner?
James Conner. See, and the problem is like with this deal is like every running back that I'm thinking about in this range is if I am going to, except for Roshan, Jamie's wrong there, but I am going to want the running back that has at least that 1 year utility because I probably need the running back more the way my roster is built, to be quite frank. But if I could trade Roshan for him, I'd trade Roshan and Jamie for Brandon Cooks.
That makes sense. It's tough for me at this point. Now, speaking of the backs for the Cowboys, obviously Tony Pollard is the bell cow over there. We don't have to question that. But does Zeke come back on a cheaper contract? They bring in Fournette, or is Malik Davis potentially the guy?
I don't think they want to bring Zeke back. I mean, maybe, but I don't see why they'd want to. Like, he didn't look particularly good. He doesn't look like he has much left.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see him coming back. He knows the offense. Well, I guess they got a new offense coordinator too. So, yeah, I could see that. So Malik Davis, is he the guy?
He's the backup. Don't forget they got Ron Jones too.
And they got the tiny dude out of whatever school it was. Deuce Vaughn. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So which one takes the work if something happens to Pollard?
None of them. It's a committee. None of them are as good as Pollard, and Deuce Vaughn is too small because someone will murder him. He's just a tiny little man.
But he can hide behind the lineman, right? Because he's so small, he can hide and then pop out. That's what he was saying in an interview.
He could until someone catches him and then just squishes him.
Oh man! And then we have Mr. Padilla in here saying Zeke is going to get a 1 year deal with the Super Bowl team. The Chiefs are somebody to keep an eye on, from what I was hearing. Just to give you all a heads up. All right.
That's fine. I mean, he's still not going to be good. Mr. Padilla texted me earlier asking me why I hate Zeke so much. I said, I don't hate him. He's washed. But as someone that doesn't like Zeke, I'm happy that he's now washed. Because I don't like Zeke. This stupid little Ewok-looking guy.
It was so funny having Jacob on the show and just telling him that Zeke was going to be better than Pollard every year, and just for fantasy purposes. And Jacob would lose his mind because he's like, "No, he won't." And I'm like, "Jacob, it's not you, man. It's not Pollard. It's the Cowboys, bro." Oh man, that's a fun episode to kind of move on from, but it kind of sucks that Jacob isn't here to take the victory laps now that Pollard is the only running back on that team.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything you're doing with Luke Schoonmaker? Are you?
No, I have no interest in him whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that he's just going to be another guy similar to Hendershot and whatever the other tight end's name is. Damn, I'm drawing a blank on names tonight. All right, let's go ahead and move on.
Hendershot. What's his name?
Yeah,
Hendershot and
it's Hendershot and then
Jacob Abercrombie.
I don't even know what the other one is.
Abercrombie and Fitch. That's the guy's name. That's the other guy's name. American Eagle.
Abercrombie and Fitch. Okay, yeah. That works. All right, let's move on to the Washington Commanders. New ownership. New offensive coordinator, which is huge. Eric Bieniemy should come in, and we don't know if it was Eric Bieniemy or Andy Reid that was running the offense, but one thing's for sure, he's going to be a hell of a lot better than Scott Turner is. So with this new offense, I was talking about it months ago, and you guys were kind of heckling me for saying that Antonio Gibson is going to be the running back to own. He's going to be the guy. He's going to finish up as a borderline RB1. I'm still sticking to my guns on that, and it seems like Twitter is kind of following suit. We've seen an increase in value in the best ball streets. We've seen an increase in value for sure in the dynasty streets.
Oh, and we saw Ron Rivera talk about, hey, we need to get the ball more to Antonio Gibson.
I know.
We know that always works. Every year that you see that in the offseason, when a coach had a player on his roster the year before and says that they need to use him more the next year, that always happens.
I will say there is one case scenario, Shane, that it reminds me of directly of when a player was in the doghouse, right? And then ended up popping up the next year with a different system. And that is Brandon Ayuk. I know it's a wide receiver versus a running back, but it feels eerily similar where, they had Gibson in special teams, and now all of a sudden they're saying they just need to get him the ball. He's been involved in the offense. He's been involved in the offseason. So, yeah,
Brandon Ayuk was was a different thing, though, right? Like, because he stopped practicing. He didn't believe in practicing anymore, so they hated him.
I don't know about that.
Like he was in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse. That's
I remember him being in there.
I mean,
but it was I thought it was because of something else.
No,
I just remember Hill being
his
involved.
Doghouse.
I remember Hill being involved, but I don't know what that Hill was. So I still feel like there was a situation where, hey, Ron Rivera didn't tell us why he was moving Antonio Gibson to the bench last year. Antonio Gibson in the first few games was absolutely insane when Brian Robinson, was dealing with a gunshot wound. And then Brian Robinson comes back, and they revert right back to running the ball up the middle and being extremely inefficient on offense. So for me, with Eric Bieniemy at the offense coordinator, not having as talented of a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes, which is pretty tough to do, let me tell you, it's
they got Sam Howell. They're fine.
Yeah, they got Sam Howell. I saw this post earlier where it was like the difference between Sam Howell and Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz. And it showed 3 plays. And it was just 3 plays of guys running straight lines and throwing balls. Carson Wentz threw like a ball too short. And then you had Heinicke throw an interception. And then Sam Howell threw a perfect ball to the sidelines to Terry McLaurin streaking down. That's not going to be the case, guys. It's not going to be the case for Howell. He's going to go through growing pains. He was a 5th-round quarterback for a reason. Sure, a lot of scouts had him being the best quarterback out of last year's draft. But honestly, last year's draft is complete shit when it comes to the quarterback position. Might be the worst draft we've seen in NFL history since like E.J. Manuel or Geno Smith. They might have even been in the same draft, to be honest. But, it was a really bad draft. And so for Sam Howell to be 5th round as a quarterback, just because they're saying that he's going to be the starter
in a good draft,
he's going to be fantasy irrelevant.
Yeah, in a good draft, he would have been drafted in the 86th round.
Yeah, probably, most likely.
Yeah,
I like Sam Howell. I do. I just don't see a ton of relevance in terms of fantasy implications for him in particular. I do see him dumping off to Antonio Gibson a good amount, just in case his primary read is not downfield, because we know that Bieniemy likes to do a one read off type situation or play calling. We're going to see some efficiency out of Terry McLaurin, of course, but what kind of worries me is how much the Chiefs spread the ball around. And if they go to the system, because Sam Howell doesn't have a connection with Terry McLaurin, right? They played 1 game together last year. If they decide to spread the ball around and they do these different play calls that are more featured to the role that a player plays versus towards the actual player, we could see Jahan Dotson getting just as much work as Terry McLaurin and probably just as much work as Curtis Samuel.
I'm going to say Jahan Dotson will get more work than Curtis Samuel, but he's not a target hog. That's just not who he is. So he's not going to outperform Terry McLaurin.
No, I don't think that any one of these players are set to be target hogs in the offense.
I know you think it's going to be spread out between the 3, but even in the Chiefs offense, I mean, they did have a primary receiver and a primary tight end up until last year.
Well, I mean, they used Tyreek Hill in a multitude of different ways. It wasn't just like a typical. Tyreek Hill was utilized more so in the Jahan Dotson role than the Terry McLaurin role, right? Like he wasn't an alpha X receiver running the same routes that you would see like a Michael Pittman run, right? Or a AJ Brown run. He was running some gadget plays. He was running deep routes where, you know, he was getting past defense. He was running end rounds. He was running screens. Like, I mean, it's not the typical X receiver that Terry McLaurin thrives in, right? Terry McLaurin isn't going to be running the same routes as Tyreek Hill, and he doesn't have the skill set to do so. Jahan Dotson might. So I'm just saying, I think that we're going to see a lot of targets spread around. And if I'm somebody with Terry McLaurin, I might be looking to move off of him ASAP. What say you?
I mean, I'm moving off Terry McLaurin because he's 28 years old, and I hate old people. I just, you know, just all in general, like I see them on the street and I yell at them. Yeah, I mean, like if I could get an age discount, like I would trade McLaurin straight up for Dotson. And I don't even like Dotson. It's because he's, you know, Dotson's 14 years younger. And if he pops a little 14. Bit this year, 14. Yeah, I'm not great with math either. But if he pops a little bit, I'll be able to actually flip him next year this time. Terry McLaurin, I'm not going to be able to flip him ever again after this year. Not for anything of real value.
What would you take for him? A second rounder?
No, that he's probably just going to die on my roster at that point.
So you would have to get a first round pick for McLaurin.
Yeah. Now again, I could add a second to it. That's fine.
Give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. I'm cool with that.
Is it a copy league?
Is it a copy league? I'll
Jamie,
take 2 seconds.
Yeah, Jamie, I like Cooks at cost, and Cooks has performed. Yeah, I mean, look, maybe Terry McLaurin will be the next Brandon Cooks, but just Brandon Cooks is indestructible. I mean, after the 37 concussions he had in a 2-year span, the dude is unstoppable now, except for when he doesn't want to play for a team like last year when he was begging the Texans to just get rid of him, and they would.
Literally,
like, please let me leave. Please let me leave. And they're like, no, you're stuck here.
They wanted that compensatory pick.
Yeah, but that's also why I said there's a great chance that Terry McLaurin I don't want to say died, but there's a good chance he just retires on my roster because I'm never going to get the equal value to his production. No one really likes him, you know? So he's a guy that, again, if I could get Jahan Dotson and take the 7-year age discount, sure. I guess it's 7 years. I don't know. But other than that, I'll probably just end up holding him. I'm not going to flip him for a couple seconds.
Would you take Cooks, a second and a third?
No.
Nope. It has to be, you have to get that first round threshold.
Yeah. It's just, I'd instead, again, I'd be like, here's a second and Terry McLaurin. Can I get your 25 first?
As we're doing this show, I'm looking at my phone and Husker's putting a bunch of players on the trade block. And I just have a feeling that half of them are like Antonio Gibson, Brandon Cooks, Terry McLaurin, just people that we're talking about. So shout out Husker in the chat, of course. All right. So in terms of the tight end position, this is a position that it feels like Eric Bieniemy is going to use, but Logan Thomas, man, he's not even getting drafted in some cases. Even in best ball drafts, like he's at the end of like round 18 where people are just taking him as a flyer, but he was relevant a couple seasons ago. They have John Bates. They have, I don't even remember the other tight end's name. What's his name? Just had an Achilles injury. Amari Rogers just had an Achilles injury today. So that's not good news. But I mean, all this just keeps on leading to more and more work for Logan Thomas. I mean, is Logan Thomas a guy that you might want to take a flyer on and send like a 4th round pick for? Third round pick?
Just
third?
Don't understand that it is a flyer because he's got 1 year production. There's been literally 1 season of his career where he's been useful. And that was several years ago now, 2 years ago. So just don't expect it. Like he's a guy I roster in 2 tight end leagues. You know, if I have to start 2 tight ends, I'm like, sure, I'll roster him. And premiums, like, sure, 2 point, I'll hold him over some Diami Brown. But I don't really expect anything of him.
So who's going to be the performing tight end for the Commanders, or do you just think they're not going to utilize one?
You can't force a moose to become a cat. They don't have a good tight end. They don't have one to use. Just saying, you can't. You know what I mean? You can't.
I have never heard that. A moose to become a cat out of all 2 animals. Is that actually a saying, like a moose to become a cat?
No, but are most of the things I say sayings? I also say things like punt the baby. Like no one's ever said that in the real world. Well,
kick the baby.
Maybe after
South Park.
But yeah, punk the baby,
kick the baby. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I'm somebody that I want to take a shot on Logan Thomas just because, like, I don't see end of the way. But I mean, he did have like that Gary Barnage-esque season 1 year.
Yeah, remember Gary? How useful was Gary Barnage again after that ever?
Yeah, he wasn't. So I mean, that makes perfect sense. It's just like, dude, it's tough to imagine an offense run by Eric Bieniemy without a tight end. So,
I mean, well, here's also the thing: we don't know what an offense run by Eric Bieniemy actually looks like.
Are we sure? Are we sure? Are we really doing this?
I'm just saying he didn't call plays. I mean,
he did. He called plays.
When he called plays,
like it was a myth that he didn't call plays.
Okay.
It was a myth
based on facts.
Based on non-facts, based on non-factual evidence of people saying, "Oh, he didn't call plays." Turned out that he actually called plays a decent amount, but
how much? 20%, 30%,
probably 20% of the time.
50.
If I had to guess, it'd be like 32.12%. And then Andy Reid took over.
I got a feeling a lot of that was him looking at Coach Reid and going, "This okay?" And Reid going, "Yeah, sure."
Yes, that's what you call the first 20 plays of every game because it was already pre-scripted. So you just had to read off what the calls
You literally are just reading them off. Like, you skipped the play, dude. No.
Damn it, I skipped the play. All right, you're off.
And that's not to say that
you only get 18 plays this week.
Yeah, it's just we don't know what his offense is going to look like. I would think he'd lean running back, if anything, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a little more pass heavy. I'm hoping that he did call more plays and he was involved in the game plan, like the reports that came out said he was. But like you said, who knows? All right, let's hop over to the NFC West, right? We got a few teams over there that need to be covered. And we'll start out with a shitty thing that happened to two fantasy players. Well, arguably both fantasy players, but for sure one was Zach Charbonnet and the Seahawks. Right, like ended up killing Kenneth Gainwell's value, killed Zach Charbonnet's value. This is Shane's one of his favorite rookies. This guy, Shane was talking about him being his RB2, which makes no sense because you obviously have Gibbs, you have Robinson, and then you have Devin Achane, so he's automatically an RB4 regardless of where he lands. But you have very strong feelings about this. So Shane, I want you to use this platform as like therapy. And treat us as like your counselor, where you're going to release all of your feelings about Zach Charbonnet and what happened. This is your time to cry is now.
I'm literally in my coping stage now, where I'm trying to talk myself into why Zach Charbonnet is still going to be a thing. Like I definitely went through the whole like defeat. Like, I don't know the 7 stages of grief, what the official names are, but
I can look it up while you're talking.
I'm just going to make them up. There's denial, alcoholism. Rage, depression, coping, and acceptance. I know acceptance is one of them.
There are 5, and you almost nailed a lot of them.
Yeah,
actually, there was. I think bargaining and alcoholism can actually be intertwined.
Yeah, I won't get into that. You learn a lot of that stuff in AA meetings too. But anywho, I still want to convince myself that, like, dude, they drafted him in the 2nd round. It's not like they didn't know Ken Walker was there, right? Like, so clearly they weren't. Thanks, Shimmy. Clearly they weren't. Good thing I don't have a complex or anything. They knew Ken Walker was there. They knew what Ken Walker did last year. There's analytics that show Ken Walker wasn't especially good at anything last year. And that Zach Charbonnet could be a better back. And they do like to run. I understand that they've got a really nice wide receiver room, but can they get these guys? Can he get 15 to 18 touches? You think that's possible? Opportunities, if not touches?
I think you're underselling the greatness of Kenneth Walker last year. I mean, his breakaway run rate was absolutely absurd, right?
Yeah, it's not a real thing. What was his expected yards over expectation?
I don't have that number.
It was low, right, and that's not even the correct stat. I'm just making stats up. His yards over expectation were not great.
Oh man, his breakaway run rate was 8th in the NFL, 7.5%, which
would
have been first in another year.
Yeah, exactly. He's a home run hitter.
So why would you want to take a home run hitter off the field? You don't.
I don't know. I would agree with you, except that Seattle said, you know what? We saw what you did, and we would like to immediately add another workhorse to this backfield.
Yeah, I just think Seattle, I think Pete Carroll get amnesia for a little bit or whatever, old people get, because you hate them. But essentially they forgot what they were doing, and Alzheimer's, that's what it is. And then,
well, I mean, I host a show, the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, with someone at Sundowns from time to time. And it's frustrating. And if he did things like drafted Zach Charbonnet in the second round when they already had Kenneth Walker on the team, I'd be really upset with him.
dude, he picks up the phone to call in like Zach Charbonnet. And then somebody pulls him off to the side after he says it. He goes, hey, we have Kenneth Walker. He's like, oh, shit, I forgot. Damn it. Well, that was a wasted pick. So, no, he thought that they still had Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. But obviously they have,
Well, I've heard that. I've heard people propose that too, right? Like they want to go back to the Chris Carson, Rashad Penny days when they played 3 games together and use them like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm out on Charbonnet for the most part. Kenneth Walker is a guy that, hey, if somebody wants to throw him in, I'm down. But I'm probably going to wait till in season when, he ends up having a couple down weeks, and then I can actually get a real value on him where people just want to dump him.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then oops, oh well, missed the bus. But, outside of that, I'm not trying to make too many moves. Now, another move that some people thought was disappointing, but I actually liked, was JSN getting drafted. And the Seahawks are known to run the least amount of 3 wide receiver sets in the NFL, or one of the least amounts. They have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, both who are capable of producing on offense. Meanwhile, you have Noah Fant, who played the slot last year. You have Colby Parkinson, who is most likely the starting tight end in 3 wide receiver sets this upcoming season. So, JSN, do you see the Seahawks increasing their 3 wide receiver sets, although they've already shut down that concept? Do you think JSN is actually going to show any kind of relevance year 1? Do you think that JSN can be bought in year 2 for cheaper than what he's worth right now?
All right. Well, first of all, if you're buying him for cheaper, that means that he had a disappointing rookie season, and you shouldn't be buying a wide receiver off a disappointing rookie season because their career is going to be a disappointment. I'm not making that up. That's just what the numbers show. Because also, I don't think he's going to be disappointing at all. I'm a believer in talent wins out, and he's a first-round wide receiver. He was his his freshman year or his sophomore year when he went absolutely fucking bananas. I think he's going to be fine. I think this is Tyler Lockett's gone after next year for whatever it's worth. And I think he's going to be fine this year. I think he goes out there. If he puts up 850 yards, I'll be a happy camper. And I think he will. So yes. So to answer your question, yeah, they're going to have to run more 3 wide receiver sets. Okay. It's going to be 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, the offensive line, and the quarterback. No tight ends, apparently. That's what I see.
Dude, that offense has to have a tight end. It won't operate without one.
Well, they can't because they've got 2 running backs on the field with 3 wide receivers.
Are you in on Noah Fant this year, although he won't be on the field?
No, I've given up on Noah Fant after years of holding out hope and expecting or hoping that he would turn into something. I'm willing to throw in the towel and say that I was 100% wrong on Noah Fant, and I expect absolutely nothing of him.
After the finish last year to Colby Parkinson's year, do you think that there's a chance that he could be fantasy relevant?
No.
So you're just completely out on Colby Parkinson?
Yeah.
Not even taking a flyer on him?
No thanks. I'm good.
Logan Thomas or Colby Parkinson?
Sure. Colby Parkinson. He's younger.
Okay, what about DK Metcalf? Does he get off that shit list? Is he going to be a top 12 wide receiver this year?
No. I think what he is a wide receiver 2, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a good wide receiver 2, but I just don't think he's a wide receiver 1 because we haven't seen him be that yet. Generally a player shows you what they're going to be in their first 3-4 years, and that just hasn't happened for him. I love DK. He's a physical specimen. I'd like to, nestle up to his bosom and have his strong arms nestle me.
And embrace you?
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1, though.
Man, that's kind of crazy because looking back after his rookie season, people were considering him like the wide receiver 3 at the time, and now he's just completely fallen off.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. So you project off of a rookie season, and then you hope that they take a step forward after that, right? Unfortunately, he hasn't. And that's not to say he's bad in any stretch of the imagination. He's still a player I really like. It's just I don't think he's a wide receiver one.
What about Tyler Lockett? What do we do with Tyler Lockett?
Nothing. Remember we were just talking about Terry McLaurin?
Yep.
Like you can't move him. His entire career, he's been a guy that's outproduced, and I wasn't always a fan of him, but he's always outproduced expectations and never been worth anything on the dynasty market because of fears that he's injury prone, right? From when he was injured like once in his career. I think he missed a few games. And just, when DK Metcalf got there, no way he can produce now. Well, he just produces every year. It's what he does.
Yeah, and, albeit injuries have happened where he's not actually missing games. He's just hurt on the field. The guy continues to produce outside of those scenarios. So I like Lockett. If I'm a competing team, most likely going to try to trade a second for him in order to get him on my roster for one more year, maybe two more if I'm lucky. But, if I'm not guaranteed to at least be a top 3 team in my league, I'm not trying to move him. And there's a difference between I'm a competing team and I'm a top 3 team in this league. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here with players like, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor. I've got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I think DK Metcalf is in there. And that's like a team I would look to acquire Tyler Lockett on, right? Like I'm a competing team at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm top 5. I at least have one player in the top 5 at each position and probably 2 in the top 10. So that's a team I'm looking to get Tyler Lockett on to replace the bye weeks, to try and fill in when there's a player that's injured, right? Before I have to go acquire a player. So before you become delusional with like DJ Moore as your wide receiver 1 or even wide receiver 2, there's a big difference between an actual competing team versus a team that thinks that they're competing. All right, let's move on to the Rams, a team that I think will have a much better offense than what a lot of people are expecting. Their defense is complete trash. Their roster, for the most part, is trash, which means they're going to have to pass in what we expect to be a decently high-scoring division in terms of better offenses than defenses. So, outside of the 49ers, I guess. So, Shane, are you looking to acquire anybody on the Rams at all before I actually go into the breakdown of the individual positions? Oh, this is very insightful.
No, I got nothing. No, I'm good.
Cam Akers? Give me Cam Akers.
You can have him. I like Cam Akers as he's like a guy that I think is probably going to have a decent season.
Second round pick.
Yeah, I'll take a second. I'll take Cam Akers if someone will give me him for a second round pick. I don't think someone will, though. That's the thing. I think someone that has him on their roster, likely at this point, thinks that they're going to be a competing team and has him penciled in as like their RB2 or 3. And they feel like they've got like this hidden gem. And they're not going to give that up for just a second. Now, obviously, if the team is absolutely trash, offer them a second and see if that gets it done.
That's actually a good point, and I like that point. If the team's trash, a second will get it done 100%. But yeah, I'm sitting there thinking I have Cam Akers on one roster, and that roster, he's my RB3. And there's no way I'm giving him up for a second-round pick because he's going to be a fill-in / flex option. So I'm not going to give up a first. Like if I have any situation, there's no situation where I give up a first for Cam Akers. But if my roster is competing, I'm also not going to take a second. So it has to be that perfect situation. I think people are forgetting that Cam Akers finished out the season extremely well last year. So I'm interested in Cam Akers if you can get him at the right price. What about a Ben Skronik, which I know you probably hate talking about this because he's a back end wide receiver, whatever.
I don't. No.
Van Jefferson. No. There has to be another relevant option.
No, there doesn't. There legitimately doesn't. It's Cooper Kupp. And who's the running back that they drafted?
Zach Evans.
Yeah, and I'm not a Zach. I liked Zach Evans until he was drafted in the 6th round. But if I'm taking a deep shot on someone, it's going to probably be Zach Evans on that roster.
Wow. I'm shocked to hear you bring up a 6th round running back. I don't know you do that too often.
I like running backs late in drafts. The only reason I know him is because all these running backs that ended up going fucking late were Debbie Darlings this time last year, and we expected a lot better than that. So just as a stab in the dark, I like Zach Evans.
Yeah, I'm down for Zach Evans if I can get him on the waivers, but I don't know that I would actually trade any picks for him. I don't even think I'd trade a third rounder for him, to be honest. There's just no draft capital. I wasn't that impressed with him personally over his final season. He was slow as shit, right? Like he didn't have the best testing, did he?
No, I mean, this is a guy that went from 2 years ago. I mean, he was probably on
RB3.
track to be, yeah, he was on track to be a second day draft pick, whether that's second round or third round. Like that's what he was on track for. And this dude found himself getting drafted in the 6th round, and he earned every ounce of it. But as a 4th round draft pick in a rookie draft, I'm fine with making it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 4th round is fine.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I also think that Van Jefferson should be explored in some leagues if you're desperate for wide receiver depth.
Yeah, I mean, look, he hasn't been, and if it's a deep league, you know, you could do worse than having Van Jefferson and on your damn, I only got Devonta Smith in one league. You do worse than having Van Jefferson as your like wide receiver 7.
Wide receiver 7, that's where you're going with them, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Fine wide receiver 7.
I think he could be wide receiver 5 in some situations, but I like Skronik. I think that he can give you fantasy relevant weeks. I think that he's somebody that you could trade a 3rd rounder for if you're desperate. But if he's on your waivers, I'm absolutely picking him up.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. What about the tight end position? Is Higbee the guy? Is it going to be Hunter Long, right? Coming over from the Dolphins, where they traded Jalen Ramsey for Hunter Long.
I don't care. I'm sorry, I don't care.
They traded one of the best cornerbacks in the league for this elite tight end option, Hunter Long, and a draft pick, by the way. But I think the draft pick was like a 3rd round pick, so it's worth way more than Hunter Long is. But still,
I don't care.
I mean, they had what's his name, Bryson Hopkins, right?
Bryson Hopkins, yeah,
who got drafted the same year, but they were like, screw Hopkins.
Yes,
we want your draft mate over there. We want Hunter Long to come over here and be the future tight end of this LA Rams offense. And, you know, they had Everett. They turned Everett into a monster that has never reverted back to a monster since. They turned Higbee into a monster. Could they turn Hunter Long into a monster? Just saying. No, you're not even going to entertain that?
No.
All right, let's – all right, is Matt Stafford a guy that you might want to acquire for a 2nd round pick in Superflex leagues?
Who?
Stafford.
Yeah, in Superflex, that's fine. Just know that it's probably a 1-year deal.
Daniel Jones or Stafford?
Yeah, Daniel Jones by a kabillion.
Goff or Stafford?
Stafford. No.
Really?
I'm thinking.
How old is Jared Goff? Without looking, how old is Goff?
29.
I think he's 28.
He was the same place as Wentz, who's already burned out of the league, which is fucking hilarious. But I think I would go with Goff because Goff's going to play more than one season. Like I think this is the finale, the series finale for Mr. Stafford.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's actually going to be his last season over there for at least the Rams at most. And then, probably in the league, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with the Cardinals. Hopkins. What to do with Hopkins? Tell me.
Hopkins. I don't know, man. Who's going to play quarterback? I have this weird thing, and it's based on absolutely nothing, that Kyler's going to miss like 2 games. And then everything's going to be right there. Goff is 28.6. Says Jamie. He probably went to Player Profiler, looked that up. Is that when they give you? They give you the decimal
0.6.
ages.
Yeah. I
don't know what 28.6 means. Does that mean you're 28 in 6 months
7
or
months,
6 tenths? I don't.
No,
6 100s.
It's 6 tenths.
He's 6 100s. Oh, Hollywood. All right. Flying meat wad. I mean, hold on. You hold on and buy. I hate old people. Hold on to or buy. Put flying meat wads up there. You hold on to or buy Marquise Brown. That dude is somehow. You didn't even
finish with Hopkins, did you?
You were finished with him. He's still only somehow 25 years old. Hopkins is a wide receiver I actually don't mind buying cheap.
I love Hollywood. I have Hollywood everywhere.
Yeah, Hollywood is a player I absolutely adore. If I can get him anywhere, because no one respects him.
And honestly, Kyler Murray is one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL. He just doesn't have a line to drop back in behind anymore, like he did a couple years ago. So that's the tough part. But I'm buying the Arizona Cardinals offense right now. I mean, outside of James Conner, who I just don't want anything to do with because he's going to give you half of a good season and then end up getting injured. And then whoever they sign as their veteran backup, like Ezekiel Elliott or Leonard Fournette, is going to just give you inefficient numbers behind a terrible offensive line. But Kyler Murray the Arizona Cardinals offense as a whole should be a buy. I'm behind Kyler Murray to an extent, depending on his cost, because some people still think that he could be a top 3 quarterback every year, and that's not going to happen. But if somebody values him outside the top 10, I'm taking that every day of the week. I'm taking Marquise Brown. I trade 2 seconds for Marquise Brown. I'll take that every single day of the week.
Yeah, that's fucking theft. Yeah,
I traded the 206 in a rookie draft and for 2023, and I got Marquise Brown. I'm taking that. I don't even know how that happened.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. Like, people making trades like that should stop.
The guy needed a tight end, and so he sent me the offer. I gave him back a third too. I gave him back like the 301. No, Michael Mayerfeld. So
yeah, was it a premium? At least
0.5.
That's barely a premium. That's not enough to move on to Hollywood.
0.5 extra for tight ends on first downs, which he might get 3 in a game.
Don't like it.
But yeah. So like I said, I don't think that it was a reasonable trade, but it did happen. So I think that people are like fire selling Marquise Brown, regardless of what league you're in, whatever position you're in that league, how your team's doing. I would definitely contemplate trying to send a 2nd-round pick to the Marquise Brown owner just to see if he takes him, because they are off on Marquise Brown right now. And the second the news breaks, that Marquise Brown or that Kyler Murray won't start week 1, which is bound to happen, right? He might play by week 2 or week 3, but he's definitely not going to start week 1. You're going to see people fire selling every aspect of this offense. So I am on board with buying this offense ASAP. Even Hopkins, I would buy, and then I would flip to a contender, even if you're not contending, for more than what I bought him for. We get closer to the season, or when Kyler Murray comes back. When Kyler Murray comes back, you're going to see a whole round jump essentially for DeAndre Hopkins just immediately. Soon as, like right now, I think he's going 4th round in non-super flex leagues, maybe 5th round. I think it's 4th round. If the news came out that Kyler Murray was going to start tomorrow, he would automatically jump up to the 3rd round.
I mean, that's another thing too, is you should still be trying to buy Kyle Murray in your dynasty leagues, because people are just so down. People are so down on Kyler Murray. It's ridiculous. I don't know what he did.
There's a whole new staff. There's a whole new front office, and they are rebuilding. They won the fucking draft, right? Like, they came away from that draft with 5 picks in the top 75, and they got a 1st and a 3rd next year. The first that they got is going to be like the 102 or the 101. And then they're probably going to have the 102 or the 101. I mean, this team is about to be stacked. This team is going to be sick. The GM did a great fucking job. I can't remember his name. He did a great job in this draft. He dominated the draft, and he got value picks all the way across the board. This is a smart organization that took over. I'm excited for the Cardinals' future. Maybe not with this generation, but they're at least going to generate fantasy points coming up here soon. Hopefully they don't release a new Call of Duty this year.
James Conner, obviously, I like him a lot. Dude's healthy, good shape. Who else is behind him? Keontae Ingram?
Yes, Conti. That's a great last round best ball pick that I've been making lately. But also he's an asset. Go buy him. Right now, the person that has him, most likely, it knows what they have because they're paying attention. And if they don't realize, they're probably going to do some quick research. Just check the depth chart. But Keontae Ingram, I might pay a 2nd-round pick for. I might, especially if I have James Conner. Would you pay a 2nd round
for Keontae Ingram?
Yeah.
No, not in this fucking lifetime. Not unless. Well, is it? How deep is the league? Is it an 18-team league?
12-team start, or 12-team, 30 people start 10.
No, not a fucking shot in the world, bro.
What would you pay? What would you pay for him? 3rd round? He's gonna get snaps this season, right? He's gonna play. He's gonna start probably at least 3 games minimum.
Yeah, no, dude, no. You're not giving up seconds. That's how you end up asset poor with a bad team, dude. Shane, if I'm a bull, do I walk or run to your ex? If you're a bull or if you're a human being, you run. You run from my ex. You run as far as you can from my ex.
What kind of bull does he mean?
So you don't watch my Dynasty Trades at 5 stream, but I just gave an analogy last night.
I watched the clips. Don't watch the stream, but I watch the clips on YouTube.
So I just gave the analogy of a father bull and a son bull are up at the top of the mountain, and they see a bunch of lady bulls down at the bottom of the mountain, and the son's like, "Hey, Dad, let's go down. Let's run down there and go fuck one of those women bulls." And the dad bull's like,
"Are they called cows?"
Yeah, whatever. And the dad bull's like, "Son, we could just walk down there and fuck all of them. Like, sometimes it's okay to just take your time." So anyway, that's what Fantasy God was referring to last night.
Jesus. All right, let's go ahead and hop on to which team have we not covered? The 49ers. The 49ers have Deebo Samuel, who I would normally skip because he's a stud, but is he a stud this season? That's the real question.
I have no idea.
Were you even listening to the actual question?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, is Deebo Samuel a stud this year?
No,
or is he somebody that should be thought about before drafting or trying to acquire, or are you selling him?
I think he's fine, but I've got this weird thing with Ayuk, man. I think Ayuk, I don't know what it's based on. I'm telling you, I just think Ayuk is going to put up a monster season.
That's like having like a super hot girl, right? Like this chick's like smoking hot, and then she has a little sister, and the little sister isn't nearly as hot. She's just more fun, right? Like you can go out, like she's gonna be crazy. She's gonna be tough to contain. She's
I gotta be honest with you.
Meanwhile, your girl's like, "Oh, I need a new set of Williams Sonoma spoons," and then you have her sister that's like, "Yo, let's go take shots of Rumple Mints," and you're like, "Oh, she's so much hotter and so much better put together, but her sister seems like so much more fun. I'm gonna go hang out with her sister tonight."
I like that. I like that analogy a lot.
I mean, I've had that situation, so it was an easy one to put together. But Shane, what are you doing with Deebo?
Who?
What are you doing with Deebo?
I like Deebo. I mean, he's 28. So I don't know how I feel about that. He's a little older, right? That's a terrible trade offer.
Jesus, Shane, focus.
I can't focus.
We're almost done.
It's 9:03. We should be finished.
The show would have been done if you were paying attention.
I'm not paying up for Deebo. I do like Deebo, though. If I can get him at a discount, I'll buy him. But I'm telling you, I like Ayuk better than him. I'm telling you right now, Ayuk is the man this year.
Oh, my God. All right. Which quarterback are you going with? Sam Darnold, Purdy, Trey Lance?
None of them. I have no fucking clue. Like that whole thing is a shit show. It just scares the living bejesus out of me. I said bejesus.
You did say bejesus. I like it.
Yeah. I have no idea what to do there. Like I can't even pretend.
What are you doing with Trey Lance? You hold him, or you trade him if somebody offers you a second?
No, I'll hold him. If someone's just offering a second, I'll hold him because his upside is one game he goes out there and rushes for 75 yards and a touchdown. Someone's probably going to be like, "I'll give you a first."
All right. What about a competitive team, like one of the elite teams in your league, the team that won the championship last year? They gave you a first-round pick. You taking that?
First round? Yeah.
All right. What about the running back situation with Elijah Mitchell? Are you in on Elijah Mitchell? Are you out? Is he somebody that you might want to acquire before the injury happens?
Yeah. I mean, hold on. He's a backup running back, and he's a backup running back in a premier spot who actually was really good when he wasn't hurt. So behind another running back that has a propensity for injuries, which, nothing against what's his face, because everyone gets injured at that position.
What about Jordan Mason?
Who? I don't know.
Who's their third string running back at this point?
It's Jordan Mason, and they still have Tyrion Davis, Lannister. So I don't want any of them. Flying Meatwad, blue jeans over Trey Lance.
Wait, who's blue jeans?
Will Levis.
Oh God.
I think yes. I think I would take blue jeans over Trey Lance at this point.
Would you?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think I would take Trey Lance personally, but I like Willis, and you don't like Willis, right?
Malik.
I mean, I'm sorry, Levis. Sorry.
Levis. I wasn't a big Levis fan. I like him at his cost right now, though.
Yeah, and I like Levis.
Yeah, I like getting him at like 109, 110, things like that in drafts. And I think I'd be willing to take a shot on him over Lance at this point.
That's really weird because I don't like Lance.
Yeah.
So, and I would rather have Lance than Willis. So
I mean, the upside for Lance is obviously it's greater. I mean, Lance is a guy that was going in second, third rounds of startup drafts and Superflex leagues last year. And all he really did was get injured. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't really do anything wrong other than getting injured.
What do you think Malik Willis did when he heard the pick come in for Levis?
He cried softly.
Probably cried, probably cuddled up like he's like, oh, my NFL career's over before it even began. I didn't have a chance to be.
I mean, but I think he realized that last year when they went out and got Josh Dobbs off the fucking the lab from the laboratory and said, hey, would you like to stop being a scientist and just come play football for us? It's like, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, Shane, we're getting out of here. We just finished off the AFC and NFC East. It was a pleasure talking to myself at some points while you were sitting there checking out trade offers. Since that's what you do during the show, let's go ahead and get you out of here. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, on your podcast players, apps, whatever. Dynasty Trades in 5 on YouTube. If you are watching the show and you haven't subscribed to that or either of those, go do that shit now, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys go check out all of our content over there at youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Hit subscribe, hit like if you guys are watching. We definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out of here.